I'm Ryan Dillon, Head of Business Development at Check-In. We have the Temperature Control and Logistics Conference coming up in September, so leading up to it, I'm interviewing some of the speakers at the event to wet our whistle for what is to come. But we're going to do it with a little bit of a twist. My guests, experts in temperature control and logistics, will be forced to eat spicy foods while they answer. A true test to see if they can stay cool under pressure. My first guest is Alan Kennedy. Alan, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you'll be eating.
Well, thanks for that super introduction, Ryan. It's great to be here with you today. As you've just heard, my name is Alan Kennedy and I hail from Bonnie, Scotland, as my accent might suggest. And I've been immersed in the world of pharmaceutical logistics for more years than I'd like to admit. At TCL USA, I'll be diving into a subject that's very close to my heart: sustainability in pharmaceutical logistics. But before we get into that, Ryan has asked me to spice things up a little in our chat. So to do that, I'll be quite literally eating a red hot spicy curry while answering his questions. This fiery challenge symbolises the intense impact of global warming on our delicate climate system. Plus, I'm hoping it will keep my brain sharp as I brace myself for what I'm sure will be a very hot grilling. So throughout our conversation, I'll be tackling a particularly deadly dish. It's a sizzling jalfrezi curry. These are known for their fiery kicks. This particular dish has been further enhanced with some super hot green chili peppers. So I suspect it's going to be a little bit out of my league. But don't worry, I've done my due diligence and conducted a full risk assessment, and I'm well prepared with a fan, some napkins, a big jug of water, and a carton of yogurt for emergencies.
Well done, Alan.
So let's see how I handle this spicy challenge by the end of the interview.
Now, although you've already dug into that spicy chili, let's get started on some of the questions about the speaking engagement that you'll be providing at IQPC. First question. Can you explain the main drivers behind the initiation of the Integrated Pharma Eco-Lanes, or IPEL, project? And what specific challenges are pharmaceutical shippers facing that the IPEL project aims to address?
Hi Ryan, for sure. So GDP-UCI stands for Good Distribution Practice Universal Compliance Initiative. It's a very cool, global, cross-industry collaborative model where folks from the pharmaceutical supply chain come together to make the distribution process smoother, more efficient, and more compliant. So we're all about evidence-based improvements and making sure we comply with distribution best practice. If you want to dive deeper into this, our website, www.gdp-uci.org, has all the spicy details. But on to IPEL, which is the topic of this interview. IPEL is short for Integrated Pharma Eco-Lanes. Now, this project is pretty ambitious and super exciting because it's all about finding that sweet spot between following good distribution practice, or GDP as it's known, and meeting growing sustainability demands. So we're creating eco-friendly freight lanes that not only meet the best distribution standards, but also help reduce environmental impacts. Think of it as a greener, more efficient way to move medicines around the world.
That's a great, and there's with another bite. That's a great initiative that is certainly extremely important. Now, how does the IPEL project plan to balance good distribution practice with sustainability imperatives?
Sure thing. Let me start by saying that it needs to be realised that logistics account for well over 10% of total global greenhouse gas emissions, which is a frightening but little disclosed statistic. The IPEL project kicked off mainly because of the double whammy facing the pharma distribution chain from A, increasingly stringent quality regulations, and B, rapidly spiralling sustainability pressures, especially from the EU and in the US.
That's pretty complicated.
So the bottom line is that pharmaceutical shippers are really feeling the heat with these stringent regulatory requirements and evolving environmental responsibilities. The current system is in a real mess. It's fragmented, it's complex, there's not much trust or interaction between shippers and service providers about. Plus, new legislation, which is continually being brought into force, like the EU's Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, real mouthful when you're eating curry, means companies have to manage environmental impacts throughout their supply chains. And this means that this responsibility is trickling down right through the supply chains to smaller firms and companies. Now, our research for IPEL found a very strong desire for change within the industry, but it highlighted the need to ensure compliance with existing regulations. So the IPEL project is all about bringing everyone together to develop logistics solutions that hit both regulatory and environmental targets.
Oh, I look forward to learning more about that in September. Going back in for another dish. Starting to sweat there, Alan? Now, Alan, can you explain in what ways does the IPEL project complement other global efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transport? And what do you see as the main differentiator of the IPEL approach?
That's a great question, because it's important to realise that although good distribution practice and sustainability are quite different concepts and are often addressed in silos, they're not incompatible. They actually go hand in hand. GDP is about maintaining the quality of life-saving drugs right now, while sustainability is about preserving the quality of the planet for the future. So both are crucial for safeguarding health and life. They just operate on different timelines. And tackling the big challenges in Pharma-Logistics really needs everyone to work closely together within an independent collaborative framework. This is exactly what the IPEL model is bringing to the table, a structured, collective effort where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Because if we don't pull together, we end up with a whole series of individual company efforts that are disjointed, uncoordinated, big ticket, and inherently suboptimal. And I also want to say that unlike some other initiatives in the market that favour certain segments like air freight, our IPEL programme is all about balancing safety, security and sustainability right across all transport modes. And also, just to be clear, we're complementing other global efforts, not conflicting with them. To show the synergies in action, we're launching 2 trial integrated eco-lanes, or IPELs, in Europe. The IPEL 1 eco-lane will connect the port of Barcelona in Spain to Poznan in central Poland. And the IPEL 2 eco-lane will run from the port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands to Budapest in Hungary. These trials are using rail as a primary line haul transport mode and will be very closely monitored to set benchmarks for continuous improvement. And following successful pilots, we are planning to expand these eco-lanes right across Europe and ultimately to North Europe, North America, and beyond.
That's great. Now, Alan, as you dig into your next bite, here's the next question. How is the IPEL concept designed to be scalable and replicable in other regions around the world, especially when it comes to economies of scale?
Shippers will definitely need to be open to change. Right now, many are focused only on reducing Scope 1 and 2 emissions and ensuring GDP compliance as a separate entity. The big shift with the IPEL model is to extend efforts for tackling supply chain-wide Scope 3 emissions and to integrate these efforts into one unified approach. Now, one of the most obvious changes that will be necessary is a move away, wherever possible, from high carbon footprint transport modes like air and road to more sustainable options like rail and sea. Road and air will still be crucial, of course, for certain segments like last mile delivery, first mile, pickup and urgent shipments, but we're pushing for more use of rail, sea and inland waterways for a greener alternative. Shippers will also need to get better at planning freight to accommodate these intermodal solutions. Rail and sea require more detailed planning compared to road and air, but with a change in mindset and better data sharing, it's totally doable. We also need to revamp supply chain training, auditing and certification. The IPEL model includes rigorous shared auditing for both GDP and sustainability measures, thus spreading costs and reducing disruptions right across multiple organisations. This ensures consistent compliance, fosters collaboration and supports continuous improvement. All these changes will mark a cultural shift towards greater transparency and collaboration. For shippers, the IPEL project means demonstrating a real commitment to sustainability and hitting Scope 3 emissions targets. Plus, it offers significant cost savings, not only because low-carbon transport is often much cheaper on a tonne-per-mile basis than high-carbon modes, but also through standardisation and economies of scale. Bring economies of scale and standardisation together and prices invariably come tumbling down. Just look at motor cars, smartphones, supermarkets, the Amazon marketplace, digital communications, and so on. So the optimising of eco-lanes for better economic and operational efficiency while maintaining GDP compliance is a very big win-win from a cost, quality and service perspective.
That makes total sense. Here's your next question. Now, what steps does a company need to take to get involved in the IPEL project? And what are the expected commitments and responsibilities of participating companies?
Well, when it comes to sustainability, well, let's face it, we all share the same planet. So it's sensible that our sustainability and environmental goals are aligned globally and we act collectively. Although supranational entities like the United Nations help at a macro level, we are still seeing national governments, like my own, playing games with their emission levels, often simply exporting the problem to poorer countries. And while there may be different GDP regulations in force worldwide, they all share a common goal, which is ultimately the same, that of safely and efficiently delivering medicines and vaccines to patients everywhere. Pharmaceutical logistics isn't astrophysics. In fact, it's a series of very straightforward processes, only complicated by the many actors involved and a lack of process harmonisation and equipment standardisation. The technical operations in Pharma-Logistics and cold chain are simple enough. We just need to harmonise, standardise and bring everyone together. So the IPEL pilots we have designed are the result of very careful planning, taking into consideration performance, infrastructure, modularity, scope for standardisation and many other factors so that they can form a template for the expansion of the eco-lane network following successful pilot results. So be assured that each individual eco-lane will be rigorously and independently assessed, validated and certificated before entering commercial service.
Now, Alan, what are the potential benefits for supply chain stakeholders that participate in the IPEL project in terms of compliance, sustainability, and overall market positioning?
There will be many roles and opportunities available to companies that get involved in IPEL. Firstly, they need to join GDP-UCI and get involved in the initial pilot exercises, whether in Europe or in the US. This is undoubtedly the best way to get involved since the company concerned will have direct involvement in the project design and be in a pole position for an IPEL license when the initiative goes commercial. In addition, by being involved in a large-scale qualification program, something which in practice would be prohibitively difficult, if not possible to arrange independently, the project participants will benefit from finding out how their service system or product performs in a demanding intermodal environment. Therefore, successful pilot participants will enjoy pre-qualified status and enjoy fast-track priority for commercial IPEL operating licenses. Now, being part of the IPEL project will put stakeholders right at the forefront of a transformative logistics model that ensures they stay compliant with evolving regulations and at the same time contribute meaningfully to global sustainability goals. By getting in on the ground floor and following the inevitable market trajectory, companies will gain first-mover competitive advantage, boost their long-term profitability, improve their operational resilience, and of course, reduce their environmental impact.
Now here we are, Alan, at the home stretch, the final question. I promise you can go cool down after this. Now, what long-term impacts do you foresee the IPEL project having on the pharmaceutical distribution and logistics industry?
As momentum grows, the Integrated Pharma Ecolanes project is set to have transformative implications for the pharma distribution industry. Designing a sustainable, scalable and replicable intermodal freight system for pharma requires careful planning and hard work, but done correctly and collaboratively, you can create a logistics solution that not only grows with demand, but can also be easily reproduced across different environments. And this ensures consistency and reliability. Now, if you're curious to learn more, please come to my presentation at the upcoming IQPC Temperature Control and Logistics North American Summit. Now, finally, just to wrap up, let's find out I think you can tell how I fared with the curry challenge. Well, sadly, I failed miserably. Because just like with global warming, the heat started small, but gradually built up until it was impossible to handle. The lesson was spicy food and unchecked global warming can have long-term harmful effects. Thank you very much, everyone. See you in Falls Church.
Wow, Alan, what a phenomenal job. You made it through the entire interview. I could tell you're sweating, but you're not falling apart. And I really appreciate you joining me today to chat a little bit more about temperature control and logistics, and more specifically about the expertise that you're going to be bringing to the conference in September. I look forward to meeting you in person, and I hope by then you've cooled down a little bit more. We look forward to getting your feedback on these interviews. We also will be coming out with a new one in the coming weeks as we lead up to the conference. And so please come back to check it. Come back here to my profile and visit Alan for more expertise. And we look forward to meeting you in person at the conference.